So, a group of Congolese Catholic slaves started a historically significant slave revolt, and their story is being told in Calgary. Yes, this is true. Happy Sunday, everyone. Happy Easter. For those who celebrate that, I'm just here right now, just doing a quick video because I just saw a ad about a performance happening here in Calgary, April 26th. It's called Drum Folk, and it's being put on by a group called Step Africa out of the United States with support from Wazo Africa here in Calgary. So definitely salute to you guys for all the work being done there. And why I'm excited about this is because their story of the Stono rebellion isn't often told. So really briefly, let me just expand on it a bit. It was a rebellion that took place, I think, in 1739, where about 60 to 100 African slaves revolted against their masters. In Canada, we're typically used to hearing the story of people going up north to find their freedom, but this is a story where individuals were trying to go south actually to find their freedom. So in that time, the United States didn't exist as the United States is right now. It was 13 colonies. This took place in South Carolina, and the slaves were trying to go down to Florida, which was controlled by the Spanish at the time. Now, why am I excited about this event? So the Stono rebellion and the people who carried out that rebellion are a very significant group of people because they dispel a lot of the misconceptions we have about slavery, about who the slaves were, about how things even happened. So I'm just gonna do a quick video. It might be 2 or 3 videos, I don't know. Well, I'm just gonna go through some of the misconceptions that we may have and how this group of people disproves that, and why you should go to this event and why you're gonna see me there too. So let's just start. Misconception number one. Let's list it out. It says that slaves were uneducated. Slaves didn't have their own system of belief. Kind of, as we see it now, they had an African system of belief, and when they were brought on the slave ships, they were converted at that point there as part of the kind of like a moral mission of slaves of slavery, like being able to like spread the gospel and all that there. So this group of people here, the slaves from South Carolina, completely blow that thought out of the water because they were Catholic. And they had been Catholic for about 200 years by the time they were even taken into slavery. So you might ask me, like, okay, so what? Like, why does that really matter? It matters because they were Catholic, yeah, like that's something we don't typically think of slaves as being, and their own brand of it, but they adhere to a specific form of Catholicism that believed that everyone was black. Jesus is black, Mary black, Joseph black, everyone black like that. And this was in the 1700s. This might be controversial to say now, but they believed this back then. And I'm just gonna pause a little bit and introduce a character here that I think a lot of people might know. I might know her as the Congolese Joan of Arc. Her name is Kimpa Vita. Now, Kimpa Vita was a young girl in the Congo Kingdom, and as I said before, there was Portuguese missionaries, and they had converted the king of Congo to Catholicism. I think, maybe like a year before Columbus set sail to discover America. So by the time Kimpa Vita came around, the Catholicism had been there for about 200 years in Congo. She took a look at it and said, no, 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 no. No, this is our story. She wanted to find the dignity. She wanted to restore her people and to restore the people, to restore the kingdom. She said that we need our dignity back, and to see what we're being told, we got to be reflected in that. So she said, not only is everyone in the Bible black, but she proclaimed herself to be a prophet that was possessed by the spirit of a man, Saint Anthony. So obviously at the time, the Portuguese priest didn't take kindly to this, and they burnt her at the stake. Now this was a time of civil war. The group that Kimpa Vita's people were connected to end up losing the war, and as a result, many of them were taken into slavery. So many of them were illiterate; they could read and write, as we could see in the story of the Stono rebellion when they first got started their rebellion. The first thing that they did was they wrote liberty, liberty on banners, and went on, started screaming liberty, but in old Kikongo, and they were saying Lukanga. That's freedom in old Kikongo. Now, let's go to misconception number two. Misconception number two usually states that, we think that all these rebellions took place, all these slaves revolts took place, and they didn't inform each other. They weren't, there's no common thread running through them. And when you look at the Stono rebellion, the subsequent slave codes that came out after that, and you see all the rebellions that came subsequent to that. There was the Gullah Wars, the Seminole Wars. Even if you look at Haiti, what happened in Haiti in 1804, when they cried out for freedom, they used the same term there, Lukanga. That same Luganga that we see spoken of in the New World, like the Caribbean and North America, a lot of times we forget, us as Africans, that a lot of the people who left with knowledge, and we might have not kept, that we need to perhaps reconnect with. A lot of these times we don't even realize that, yes, the slave revolt failed, and people were killed and taken back into slavery, but the people who were part of those communities are still around now. The Gullah people are still there, and we know nothing about that. So now bringing it back to the motherland, when we have the way we seek out freedom. In Congo we have another famous prophet by the name of Simon Kimbangu. I'm mentioning him here because we just had there's a federal holiday in Congo for him. He's a prophet who kind of spoke about the different types of independence we would need as a people, in order to, really make it. There'd be our first independence, our second independence, and even him, that same Luganga, that concept of that deep, a dignified freedom, is still the same one that resonates there. So definitely, like, looking into this, and reconnecting all these systems of thought, I think is critically important, and also very interesting. Now going on to misconception number three. The third misconception that we usually encounter is that under the system of white supremacy, all the different groups under it end up fighting against each other. So here in Canada, we have the term BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, People of Color. We all kind of get grouped into, I don't know, one label there, and some people like it, some people don't. For me personally, though, I think that there's a deep lesson there. And if we look at the Stono rebellion and all the wars that happened subsequent to that, you see a history of, if you know about the Seminole Wars, these were times where black and indigenous people could fight together against one system that was oppressing all of them. This story does reflect that truth, and I think that is a big lesson for us here in Canada, to be able to see what's possible. That fight, though the initial rebellion was kind of stamped out to a degree, the fire to keep fighting within those people, if you study the history, it goes deep. It past when America became America, they were still there fighting. And I think that that is something very noble, and something us here in Canada we can learn a lot about, especially since we're using that term BIPOC the way we've been using it. All right, those are my three things there. I hope